What is going on, traders? Happy Monday. I hope you guys all had an amazing weekend. But as usual, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know exactly how my trading went today. So let's jump right into it. And as you guys can see from the screen, it was a green day overall on my account, right? Up nearly $200 on the day. But in terms of how I did day trading wise, I traded both SQs and TQs today. As you guys can see, I was up $25 on SQs and $76 on TQs, right? So overall, I was able to hit my 1% daily goal for the day, right? I do want to remind you guys that I had scaled down, right, from using 30,000. I'm currently using 10,000 at the moment, right? So that equates to a 1% profit or daily profit goal of $100, right? So I finished up nearly, 101 on the day, something like that. And what I really liked about my trading today, even as you guys can see, is there weren't that many filled orders, right? If you guys saw my video from Friday, you would have heard me say that my goal heading into this week is to take less trades, right? And to make sure they're more quality setups, right? That's exactly what ended up happening, right? I made sure not to overcomplicate it, and I had a total of 37 filled orders, right? I started buying into SQs at market open, right? I cut it for a profit, continued to buy back in, sold out for more, and then I focused my attention on TQs. And so, why was I focusing on SQQQ right at market open? And then, what made me switch to TQs, right? So, as far as what I saw going on, right during the pre-market session, we were pretty much trading sideways and consolidating, right? We did sell off to the bottom VWAP, ended up finding a bit of a support. And what actually ended up happening? Well, as soon as the market opened, we saw the Nasdaq start to pick up, right? As you guys see, right at 6:30, these increase in volume bars, right, caused the Nasdaq to push up to the middle VWAP. And what actually ended up happening? Well, around this area, I wasn't so sure which way direction was going to be headed, right? But what I did know is that the past 5 days, what did I actually see, right? So I noticed, well, let me actually take a step back further. So maybe the past 20 days, it'll be easier to see, right? There's been a really strong resistance right around this general area, right? We saw it acting as a resistance right around, when was this? Beginning of the month, right? So it was acting as a very strong resistance, right? We pushed up, tested the resistance again, and what ended up happening, we were consolidating during that pre-market session, like I mentioned. But, you know, as far as we're concerned, right, as soon as market opened, this thing did have a nice pop, but it started to aggressively sell off. And this is where I made sure, to be very patient. I wasn't going to sure if we were going to get rejected and start to make new higher highs and start to change direction, or if we were going to make a new low. And so what actually ended up happening is once we started to make a new low, right, I started to get into SQs, it broke the support, and I started to sell out for a profit right around this area. The main reason for that is right on the bigger time frames, you guys will notice that there is a strong resistance right around this area, right? And although it was, validating the resistance, there also tends to be a form of support that it trades around, right? As you guys can see right around this general area, when it was approaching these levels, it was trading in between this pattern, right? In between these two horizontal lines. And so now that we did push up and we're testing that resistance, right? I wanted to see if we were going to potentially test this area as a support like we did last time. And that's what ended up happening, right? So that's why I decided to cut my trade on SQQQ there, right? I thought there was potential for this thing to bounce and potentially try to test that resistance yet again before it does decide to continue to sell off tomorrow, right? Or push up and break above this resistance. And so that's what I saw going on, as you guys can see, right? We ended up dipping down, testing this support level before we ended up finally bouncing and changing direction. And so right around this area, I was trying to predict TQs, a little prematurely, and I did get burned a bit on that. As you guys can see, anytime this thing would have a nice green candle, I would think this is it, right? I would start to size up only for it to make a new low, right? But what actually indicated to me that it was finally going to change direction this time around was this thing sold off, tried to pick up, right? Got rejected, pulled on back, tested that same support, started to pick back up here. I personally thought we were going to continue to uptrend here. So once it pulled on back, I fully averaged up, only for this thing to break below, right, and end up stopping me out. This thing ended up making a new low on the day here. So I actually lost money on this trade, right, for TQQQ because of the fact that it didn't actually change direction here. or here, right? It took a third time to finally sell off, make a new low, right? I actually cut losses here on TQs, but once I saw this thing bounce, right, very aggressively the way it did, right, that gave me a clearer picture of, okay, this thing can finally start to go the way I think it can. And only once it started to break above the EMA, I sized up, right? And then I made sure to size down at areas that made sense to me. For example, this area, as we approach the middle VWAP, I think I did size down, and then I sized back up as I saw it starting to validate the EMA and it broke the resistance, right? I would size up, then size down as it would approach a critical resistance like it did here, right? And as it pulled on back and started to continue to push up, I would size back up, and I kept it simple, right? I ended up finishing my trading right around this area as it did approach, new resistance or previous resistance levels, right? And so, I thought it would be in my best interest to lock in profits there. Obviously, this thing continued to climb throughout the day, but, I was there, trading for about 2.5 hours today, and I was able to finally hit my daily goal around this area. So why was I going to overstay my welcome in the market and potentially risk this thing changing direction and me giving everything back, right? We want to make sure that we're hitting our 1% daily goal and getting in and out, almost as quick as we can, because the longer we stay in the market, the longer that our money is at risk, right? Every single trade you take is a risky trade, right? So that's why we want to make sure we're implementing good habits and managing that risk, right? And setting stop losses if necessary, right? That's what I ended up doing. As this thing started to pick up and go according to plan, I ended up setting a stop loss so that if it were to finally break below this and break the support and form a new low, I would get out there, right? Because it would make sense to me as to why this thing was no longer uptrending and may possibly start to downtrend, right? So that's my takeaway for the day. Although it was very choppy, right? You guys can see direction was changing, very quickly today, all throughout the day, and so I definitely could have seen myself getting stopped out in these trades if I really try to trade impulsively like I have been the past few weeks. But I'm just glad that I really took a step back and tried to add when it made sense to me, right? When I had true confirmation of these higher highs and higher lows, and it's using the EMA as a support, right? So once I did see that today, right, it gave me, more of a clear indication that it was time to size up. And, as it did start to, get rejected and struggle, that gave me my indication of when to size down. And so I'm just grateful that I was able to, walk away with a profit on the day. And, the fact that I was just able to, almost see this trade happen before it did, right? If that makes sense. I thought it could get choppy and change direction around this area to test the previous resistance, and that's what actually ended up happening, right? And so heading into tomorrow, what am I looking out for? Obviously on the bigger time frames, right? Even the past 180 days, it gives you a clear picture to see of, this very strong resistance we're experiencing. So, as of tomorrow, it's looking very overbought. I personally am going to see where we're at trading pre-market, but if it's still, closer to these higher levels, I am going to think about getting into SQQQ for a potential correction in price, right? But if this thing decides to break above these resistance levels and start to form new highs, that can happen too, right? And I will do my part in trying to go with that momentum. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to discuss in today. I hope you guys all took something away from it and we're all able to learn something new as well. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. It really does mean a lot to have your support. But other than that, I will be posting a recap tomorrow. So I hope to see you guys then. Take care and have a good rest of your day.